All right, let's just jump right in. We live in this world that's absolutely overflowing with ways to connect, right? You've got social media, smartphones, instant messaging, and yet so many of us have this deep, nagging feeling of being completely alone. It's this huge paradox of our time, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack here. Dr. Curtis Peterson, a social psychologist who studies this exact thing, just nails it with this quote. I mean, this sentence captures a feeling that I bet so many of us can relate to. We have hundreds, maybe thousands of friends online, but who do you actually call when you're in a crisis? So that's the big question, isn't it? Why, if we have all the tools in the world for connection, why is finding a real, deep sense of belonging so incredibly hard? Well, the answer is a lot more complex than you might think. To really get to the bottom of this, we kind of have to look at the problem in a different way. This isn't just about a bunch of individuals struggling on their own or just a mental health issue. According to the research, what we're really facing is a fundamental crisis of belonging. Dr. Peterson tells this story about a student who, from the outside, looked perfectly connected. Went to every class, took part in discussions, chatted with people every single day. But on the inside, they felt like a complete stranger, like nobody truly knew them. And that feeling of being present but not really seen, that's the very core of modern loneliness. So how do we even begin to make sense of this? Let's introduce this really powerful idea from the research called the Identity Ecology Model. This is going to help us see how our sense of self is actually built, or in some cases, isn't built by the world around us. Okay, so the key takeaway here is that we don't just invent who we are in a vacuum. It's co-constructed. We figure out who we are based on the feedback and the recognition we get from the communities we're a part of. In other words, our identity is a product of our environment. Now, what's so fascinating is how this model breaks that environment down. It suggests that we're all living inside these three overlapping layers of belonging, and each one is constantly sending us signals about who we are and who we're supposed to be. Let's make this super concrete. Your proximal system, that's your inner circle, your family, your closest friends. Then you have the intermediate systems, which are the more organized groups you belong to, like your job, your school, or your church. And finally, you've got the distal systems. These are the big, society-wide forces, the cultural stories we see in the media, or the ideas we hear in politics. Every single one is signaling expectations to you, all the time. Okay, now here is where the trouble really starts. In a more stable society, all these signals from all these layers, they tend to line up. They reinforce each other. But in our world, which is changing so fast, they often collide. And this creates what the model calls identity cross-pressure. This is that feeling of being pulled in a million different directions at once. Your family expects one thing from you, your job expects another, and the culture at large is telling you something completely different. It's like this constant internal tug-of-war over who you're even supposed to be. And this is a brilliant way to picture it, especially for men. Many men today are caught in what's been called an intergenerational identity sandwich. From one side, they're getting these really traditional signals, be a stoic provider, be a protector. But from the other side, they're getting these new, evolving cultural signals, be emotionally open, be a collaborative partner. Trying to be both at the same time creates this incredible strain. So what happens when people are feeling this constant cross-pressure? Well, they start looking for a stable place to belong, right? They search for it, often in new and different kinds of spaces. But as you can guess, this search comes with its own set of problems. I mean, just think about it for a second. Decades ago, the front porch was more than just part of a house. It was a piece of social architecture. It was a space for those spontaneous, informal hellos with neighbors. That whole world of casual, everyday community, it's largely vanished. The porch is empty. Sociologists actually have a name for these kinds of spaces. Third places. They're not home, that's your first place, and they're not work, that's your second place. They're all those essential in-between spots where community gets built, where you're seen, known, and remembered, without any real agenda. And the decline is it's stark. Think about the local barber shop, the bowling league, the community center. These were the places where social trust and recognition were built. As they've faded away, so have the very relational mirrors we need to help us form a stable sense of who we are. Well, that need to belong doesn't just go away, right? When these physical third places disappear, we don't stop needing to belong. We migrate. We look for what the research calls substitute belonging in places like online gaming communities, social media groups, and political forums. And sure, these can offer a kind of connection, but they're often totally disconnected from our real physical lives, which sometimes just makes the pressure even worse. And the numbers on this, wow, the numbers are pretty sobering. Journalists have called it the friendship recession. Just look at this, a massive jump in the number of Americans who report having no close friends at all. This isn't just a feeling, it is a measurable, alarming social trend. So let's try and pull all of this together. The silence that's fallen over our neighborhoods, those empty porches and closed community centers, that's not just a series of personal choices, it's a symptom of a much bigger ecological problem. And this, right here, is the key takeaway. The loneliness that so many of us feel, it's not a personal failing. It is an identity crisis. It's what happens when the very social fabric that's supposed to hold us, to see us, and to know us starts to fall apart. I really want to end on this incredibly powerful quote from Dr. Peterson because it just perfectly sums up everything we've been talking about. We are not designed to figure ourselves out alone. Our sense of self only becomes solid, only becomes coherent when it's reflected back to us by a community that actually recognizes us. Which leaves all of us with a final and pretty crucial question. In this age of empty porches and digital substitutes, when the neighborhood itself has gone quiet, where do we actually go to be known? What will it take to rebuild those places of real belonging? It's something we all really need to think about.